Adam Soos here for Rebel News. Despite being the most disliked mayor in the history of Calgary, Mayor Jyoti Gondek and her gaggle of woke councillors seemed dead set on voting for the most unreasonable policies they can think of, showing a clear lack of introspection. You may be asking yourself, how much worse can City Council get than banning fireworks for suggesting they are colonialist and racist, botching an arena deal only to sign a more expensive one, rezoning the city despite clear backlash from folks suggesting that that is not what is best for the citizens of Calgary, and a litany of woke, radical, aggressive agendas that simply will not stop. How much worse can it get than that? Well, you might be surprised. You'll be shocked to learn that City Council voted 9-6 here in the city of Calgary in favor of advancing a policy that would see non-citizens vote in this city. Now, the Municipal Affairs Minister for the province, Rick McIver, has already said that this is nonsense and it simply will not happen. But in order to garner some more perspective on this, I sat down with one of the non-wacko councillors from City Council, Dan McLean of Ward 13, to get his opinion. The idea of non-citizens voting is not reasonable, is it?
No, not at all. So it's non-citizens is a broad term, but it's permanent residents is kind of what Councillor Walcott and others were voting for. And again, it was to put it to the Alberta municipalities to then lobby to get it done. So that vote yesterday didn't automatically make it happen. Right. The province says no way is going to happen, and I agree with them. Yeah. No, it's I love permanent residents. They add a lot to our society, but citizens vote only.
Right. Yeah. So and on that note, why is it that 9 people in City Council, despite the fact that Rick McIver, who's in charge of municipal affairs, said this isn't happening, saw fit to move forward with this? Is it virtue signaling? What's the basis for the vote going this way when it's not going to happen anyways?
Yeah, of course. There's always a lot of that woke virtue signaling. And I don't know why, but there's a certain component of council that loves wasting time, wasting money too. But this is an utter waste of time and resources. So I don't understand it. So here we are.
You know, my next question for you, I suppose we know that on a federal level, Justin Trudeau is sort of bringing in mass immigration and there's nothing wrong with immigration, but on a level that we can't even provide housing for. And many suggest that he's doing that in order to sort of secure votes that he may not otherwise have. Do you suspect that for some councillors, their hope is by allowing people to vote, they may be able to garner some votes? Do you think that's part of the consideration here?
Well, lots to take in there, because there's the motivations. You'll see it south of the border as well. There's been talk about 16-year-olds voting as well from some of the same councillors. So do they think that they would probably vote more towards the left? You know, I think that's probably their thinking. But going to the mass immigration, like underneath Stephen Harper, Minister Harper, it was 350,000 people coming in per year. We need immigration, a robust immigration system, but you nailed it there with 1 million people coming in for a year. We're in a housing shortage because we've got a lot of people competing for the same houses. That nails it right there. Blanket upzoning is the solution, I don't think.
Well, let's get into that really quickly, and then we'll get back to this conversation, though. What has the feedback been like? I know originally there were sort of split panels, so you're getting both sides. But now that citizens are having their say, what's the majority opinion on that rezoning conversation?
Just like all the previous polling, I mean, 2/3, 3/4 of people are against this. We're seeing this now in the panels. At the very beginning, the first few days, it was an even mix, which is what we try to do. The last several days have been all people coming. They ran out of, I guess, the supporters. To be honest, what we saw we see the same people all the time. Some of these groups that are, I forget the exact term, but it's just these special interest groups. And you'll see, if you saw a couple councillors go to the university, to the Students' Union, and go on radio shows and recruiting people out of the unions. We've seen high school kids come and speak. So they go out and recruit real hard. The people on the no side, I mean, don't do that at all. This is grassroots people coming out that say, I don't want this. And yes, the majority are against it.
Now, for folks out there who maybe don't know, obviously the sort of federal and provincial mandates are sort of constitutionally defined, but cities very much operate underneath the sort of jurisdiction of the province. Do you have any thoughts on that for folks who maybe are thinking, well, how come the province is butting in on some of these matters?
Well, that's the way it's always been.
Yeah.
I mean, the province has jurisdiction. It's called the Municipal Government Act. They create cities. They do the funding. It's always been that way. The province has always had the power to come in and wipe out a whole council if they wanted to. They saw that in Chestermere. There's all sorts of sketchy stuff going on. Yeah. So now this isn't changing anything. People are worried about the province maybe expanding their powers. They're just letting people know, maybe putting people on notice. The cities have always been beholden to the province. They say that we are the children. They're like the parents. And I think once I said to the press, sometimes the kids need a spanking.
That sounds just about right. Now, one other thing on that sort of notion of the interaction between provincial and municipal governments, the provincial government apparently, we're just hearing, backing down on the cutting of funding for sort of affordable transit passes. What's the latest on that? Yeah,
low-income transit pass. That came up yesterday. And it was at $5-6 million. The province says that they were going to stop. It was a pilot program. Right. I actually had a conversation this morning with the minister saying they were going to backtrack on that. Right. I didn't think it was right. The optics were terrible. Yeah. I mean, the city's running massive surpluses. We have a spending problem. The province also has, they're spending too. They have lots of, and they have a surplus. But for $5 million, I mean, low-income transit passes, seniors. I mean, I'd include veterans in there as well. Yeah. But yeah, let's not quibble over, $5 million is a lot of money. And here's deserved. We've spent a lot more on other things that maybe not so deservedly.
Now, whether it's this notion of non-citizens voting or the rezoning or the plastic single-use bylaw or the new arena, whatever it may be, the never-ending sort of a litany of decisions that has made Mayor Gondek one of the least popular mayors in the country and the least popular mayor in the history of Calgary, do you think, especially given some of the considerations with rezoning, behind the scenes conversations, I'm saying this, not you, with the federal government on funding agreements, that the provincial government's advancement of Bill 20 and increasing their powers to ensure that activist mayors can't run amok and destroy cities, do you think that that's necessary? Do you think it's an overstep? What's your opinion on that?
Well, this isn't something new either. It's been discussed, and I think the catalyst for this was last year in Calgary, the last municipal election. There was an entity, a third-party advertiser called Calgary's Future, raised $1.7 million from 6 different unions. They recruited, they backed, endorsed, trained, and supported a slate of candidates. Yeah. Exactly what a party system is. Yeah. So that they were successful. A lot of the majority of council were their candidates. So I think the province is just formalizing that exact same process. So we're just going to open it up for other people to do the same. And I think the advantage to that is instead of having 10 people run in a ward, all saying what everybody wants to hear, you might have cut that down to 2 or 3. And one that'll say, I'm like myself, I say I'm a common sense conservative, lower taxes, lower crime, less crime and social disorder, smaller government, these types of platforms. A party would then identify or endorse me. I could refuse that endorsement if I wanted to. Yeah. No money comes directly to a candidate through a party. There would be no party whip. It's just basically letting the people be more educated about who their candidates are.
And do you suspect that the reason they're so opposed to this is they've effectively been doing this, they've been organizing, they've been effective, and we saw so many wards where you saw 60% of the vote go to 3 different conservatives, and then a progressive candidate got in? Is it just they don't like being beat at their own game?
Well, I guess you could just ask yourself, why are they so vocal? What are they afraid of? Why is it seems like the people on the left are so against this? Yeah. So that's telling.
Finally, to go back to original conversation, will non-citizens be voting in Calgary on Dan McLean's watch?
No, and not on Rick McIver's watch. He's the ultimate authority, and he said no. So, yeah, you can count on that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time. And as always, everyone at home, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. Canada's major cities are falling into chaos, all while woke politicians use city coffers and taxpayers' hard-earned dollars to fund their personal passion projects and woke ideologies. If you agree that this must stop and that politicians in cities need to get back to the basics, like ensuring that folks are safe when they go downtown, sign our petition at fixourcities.com.